now recording, and I will read out the first question. How did you become interested in information science?
I think it started already back when I was studying information science from 69 to 73, when around 72, 73, I was taught how faceted classification was working, and it was a very impressive way our professors was showing us how to make this kind of a very difficult classification. And therefore, I could easily see that one needed not only some kind of a normal way of categorizing books and articles, but also a more user-oriented way of looking into how various persons or groups of persons understood the content of documents. And that made me think about context, and it therefore also was very important for me slightly later when the first IRFIS conferences started in Europe, the International Forum for Information Science. Those conferences started in 75, and in Copenhagen was already the second one in 77. And I think, because I was part of it, that it was important for me to meet all these very theoretical but also empirically based researchers like Cochin and Shearer from the United States, and Brian Vickery from Britain, and B.C. Brooks. So that meant that I could feel some kind of a big international bridge, and that it seemed very interesting to dig into this kind of science, not just look into classification or indexing or cataloging as we had done so much before, but trying to look at things in a comprehensive way. And then later, I would say it has been very important for me to be part of the international context and international networks, which started already with these IRFIS conferences. So that's where it started from my point of view, I think.
Okay. What were the most significant steps in your career?
Yeah. Besides becoming assistant professor at the Royal School of Library and Information Science in Copenhagen, as a part of that, I think it was important for me to be part of a research team headed by Paul Zimmermann and Ole Harbo, and we tried to start up, you could say now, information studies, information seeking studies, and probably also you could say interaction studies already at that time, and we are now back in 74, 5, 6, 7. And that research made it possible for me to be a research fellow in the European Space Agency in their online service division in Frascati in Italy from 81 to 84. I think that is one big thing for me, because down there are lots of real scientists, mainly from physics and chemistry, and they were showing me how to make, you could say, rigorous research and writing. So my first articles, and I think one of my better achievements from an empirical point of view was done during my stay there. Then later, I had the chance to together with my wife Irene Wormel to develop a department in the Royal School, which was serving industry with information, you could say, information management skills, and basically was also information systems design. And from that, I think we went on, because of all the research we could do and did. I went on in two directions. In the 90s, One was information retrieval, where I became head of the master's program in the Royal School. And the other one was that I continued into a Center for Infometric Studies, where we tried to make use of citation analysis, and you could say the information retrieval skills I knew about to be used in with the purpose of making citation analysis in various ways. And then I think one big thing was that I became a visiting professor in Finland in Åbo Academy, and also slightly later in Tampere University, which led to my professorship probably in Copenhagen in the Royal School of Library Information Science, where I have been professor until now in information science. And during that, all these long period, I've been lucky enough to work together with lots of people, and probably that's the reason why, for example, the Finns made me Doctor of Philosophy honoris causa in 2010. And I think I've been lucky also, as one peak has been the ACIST Research Award I received in 2003, and later on I also got this Solar Prize medal for my contributions in scientometrics. So that's, I think, is my development, you could say, and my best moments in my career.
Okay, thank you. What, in your opinion, did you contribute to the field?
Yeah, I've never really worked alone. I've always worked together in various teams, but if one should point to certain things, it might be, you could say there are two facets of it. The research itself and more organizational achievements, perhaps, or contributions. If we take the latter first, then you could say that I was lucky to work together with the Finns, especially Pertti Vakari and Kalevo Järvelin, so that we could start up again the information science conferences under the name of COLIS, the Conceptions of Library Information Science, back in the 90s, when this IRFIS conference series had stopped in the middle of the 80s here in Europe. So we started up COLIS, and later I've been lucky to also start up information interaction in context conferences, and we also were tried to make a manifestation of Nordic collaboration in information science with the Nordslis network, which was sponsored heavily by the Nordic Council, which were running around the millennium for 5 years in total. In a scientific way, I think I had made some contributions in information retrieval, especially information retrieval interaction and cognitive aspects of information and information science on the one hand, and that led to theories about polyrepresentation of the information space and the user space, and that are theories which have been distributed a bit to other younger researchers who are trying to use this idea or set of ideas. And another approach has also been perhaps this that attempt to integrate information seeking theory with information retrieval, especially in information retrieval interaction, together with Kalevo Järvelin from Tampere. Completely different track, but also connected, of course, somehow to information retrieval has been my attempt to make use of citation analysis on the web. That means webometrics, and I have also tried and failed in making some kind of web impact factor, which I must admit is one of the achievements, but also one of the real failures, I think, from a scientific point of view. So I would say that's perhaps those things I will be remembered for, if I remembered at all.
Can you tell us of colleagues who were the most influential in your work?
Yes, that's quite easy. I've thought about who really has meant most to me during the years, and obviously I mentioned some of them before. P.C. Brooks had a huge influence on my earlier work. Also, of course, of contemporaries, Nick Bilkin and Steve Robertson. Heavy influence has also been from Kees van Riesbergen and his way of doing laboratory research in Glasgow, which has influenced very heavily my way of doing both laboratory research in Denmark, but also to how to teach and deal with PhD students. I think I've used very much of Kees' way of doing it. Then of other contemporaries, unfortunately dead now, Karen Spack-Jones, because of her methodological rigor. And then also very older ones, you could say, aside from P.C. Brooks, Eugene Garfield and Don Swanson also. Eugene Garfield, because of all his influence on me on ways of doing citation analysis in various ways, and I know him privately also. And Don Swanson, because he's one of the few information scientists who covered both information retrieval and scientometrics, bibliometrics, and therefore was a big, you could say, star for me, because exactly this way of putting together two somehow different fields into one was very make me curious and I think very challenging. So also younger researchers, I've been influenced by Monia Lalmas from Glasgow and later various other universities because of her influence on, let's say, combining hardcore computer science logic and then also information interaction. Likewise, you could say that Pei-Ling Wang from Knoxville, because of her methodological influence on my way of doing research. And finally, very younger people like Diane Kelly, because they have this very comprehensive way of doing research, which I like very much. So I must say I admire these younger researchers. Yes, I think that's the fundamental influential persons on my career.
And what do you consider as the most significant achievements of information science?
Yeah, it's difficult because there's so many minor things which has taken place in the last 20 years. But I think one of the big things, bigger developments has been the development of search engines. And if you look at search engines, especially success of Google and Yahoo, then you can easily see that if information science had not existed, Google and Yahoo and so on would not have looked like they do. The PageRank algorithm is, perfect, you could say, or unperfect, or imperfect, but amalgamation of citation analysis like algorithms and then information retrieval algorithms. And the way Yahoo is, in a more qualitative way, is trying to categorize and make available their information to users is also heavily, I think, influenced by ways of thinking in information science and information studies as such. So I would say these two achievements are very much grounded in information science. Then, of course, there are other minor things going on within the framework of the web, where we could say that we also have had a big hand. But I think basically it's that. And but if one should point on something where we have during many years had an influence and helped, it would be things taken from classification and faceted classification, simply because that's the only really contribution we have given to, for example, computer science. But also very important.
What has been the role of ASIST in this and in your own work?
I think ASIST is very important information junction. I've always seen ASIST as a meeting point, international meeting point. Even though it's North American, there have always been a lot of people from other information scientists from other countries participating in the ASIST meetings. And therefore, I think it's very fruitful now that it becomes more international. So ASIST becomes a truly international organization. I think ASIST has been a meeting point in the sense that it's there where scientists of information, practitioners, IT persons, and both younger and young and senior researchers and practitioners meet. And that's very fruitful because that's how innovation, for example, comes about. And it's also where you can meet new stars and make acquaintances with your old friends. That's why it's very important. For me personally, I think it's aside from this meeting point issue, it has been the journal JASIST, which has been my most important vehicle for also getting information and knowledge about the field, but also in many cases my vehicle for my publications. And I'm very proud to be part still of the editorial board of JASIST, of course.
What do you see as the main challenges and opportunities for information science?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. There's even though the search engines are perhaps our biggest development or achievement, it's also a potential for our downfall, I think, because more and more will be put on the web and more information will be distributed without real professionals sitting and doing anything about it. It will come directly from the producer and to the end user. And that means that there is a challenge to information scientists and information specialists, but what really to do in the future. And one of the biggest challenges I think will happen is, or not happen, that depends on how you look at it, but in the longer future, I don't know really what will be the role of libraries, including public libraries, because a lot of stuff will be present on the web in various search engines aside from the libraries. And that means that libraries will tend to be some kind of museum instead of a living organism. And that might be difficult for information science to cope with. But then also I think it's very important because information science is also information technology, as is in the name of ASIST. And I think it's more important also now, especially in the future, to combine much more information technological stuff and into the curriculum of information scientists. I think that is one of the challenges to make the proper cocktail. So we're not computer scientists, but we do deal with this, how should I say, triangle of IT, information use, and information content. And that is also what one could say to the students or younger persons who would like to do something in information science. This is the big thing, I think. This is the good thing about information science, that we combine content, knowledge content, with information use in various ways and put into a framework of information technology. That's why it's very important also that we have this in front of us, all the content, use, and technology, and not just one or two of these three very fundamental parts of information science. So.
Okay, and that was the last question.